It's our August 2025 meetup. Abby Magner is going to be our guest. We're going to get her on a Zoom call here in about half an hour. But they were generous enough, X-Arcade, to send us this X-Arcade demo unit so that people can try it out, kind of see what it adds as far as sense of presence and immersion when playing pinball and retro arcade games. And at the end of the night, we will be giving it away. So if you are interested in it, write your name on a slip of paper over there on that table and drop it in the bag. At the end of the night, we will pull a name out and it will go home with you. If you don't have a vehicle that will transport it intact, let me know. I can just drop it off to you. I will say that it was a pain to assemble. So you would probably prefer not to disassemble and have to reassemble it. But you know, if you really want to, you can. I won't stop you. But I'm happy to drop it off anywhere reasonably in the Houston area at some point if you don't have a car that'll transport it. It does come apart a little bit, but not much. So these are some of the people we've hosted over the years. We've been doing this for, I guess, 11 years now, every month. We've also done a fair bit of outreach and libraries, school systems, maker fairs, things like that. And then we also had the Immersive Technology Conference for a couple of years. So news. Neymar VR World just opened in Memorial City Mall, which is like a stone's throw from where I live, so I'm excited to go try it out. I will go test it out and report back. It's a lot of like motion simulator type rides. Cars, motorcycles, jets, monster truck, there's a UFO. I have no idea if it's good or not, but I'll give it a try, and if it is good, maybe we can all organize a field trip and we can all meet out there or something.
Is that actually in the mall?
It is in the mall.
Cool.
It has an outside entrance, but it's in the mall. Sharp is developing a hybrid tactile glove and controller. It's not like the haptics ones where it'll physically stop your hand when you're holding an object so that you have the sense of the size of it, but it does have, you can see them here, these little sort of tactile inducers that are on your fingertips that can produce a number of sensations. It'll also use the flex sensors in there to track your fingers. But what's kind of cool is that it's got an integrated VR controller right there. So you got the buttons, you got the joystick, which is cool. That way you don't have to kind of juggle back and forth. They're not positive whether they're going to bring it to market or not. They're sort of testing it out. If they do, it'll probably be around $700. So this is pretty cool. Hauntify, it's actually been out for a while, but it used to use the meta setup where you had to go in and like define your walls, define your doors, all this stuff, which is a real pain to do if you're kind of doing your whole house. And there's a developer out there who released a library for continuous meshing using the pass-through inputs. So it's optically like mapping out the three-dimensional space. And so it sort of continuously maps your house as you do it. And so this allows it to have a horror game that plays out in your home. Let's see if you can tab over and start it up.
You start seeing it again in your sleeve. Well, there you go. That's what you're talking about for your whole house.
All right, go ahead and pause that and swap back. So
they're actually able to do, it's almost like what Magic Leap was trying to do with their AR goggles. They're doing
Yeah.
occlusion
Yes.
of objects.
Yes, and it is actually respecting that.
Based on their physical.
Right, so if you close a door, it blocks the thing.
Pretty good.
And they will be occluded by nearer objects. And since it's real time, I mean, if you close a door, it picks that up. So it's just very slick. And the cool thing is that you've got the pass-through video coming through. It can darken the video and then give you a flashlight. So it can make the house dark even though it's not. I thought that was a really clever use. That library to do this is publicly available and free to license. So anybody that wants to incorporate it can do so.
Is that single player only, or is there?
I don't know. I haven't actually played it. But there was a Kickstarter way back. It didn't make, but it was an early VR game, and it was what do you call it? Asymmetric. You had one person in VR going through the house, and everyone else got to choose what things were happening.
Oh, wow.
Which, yeah.
What does it run on?
It ended up not being released. There was a demo, but it was DK2. It was way back. So Apple, we knew that there were leaks that there was going to be an updated Vision Pro either late this year or sometime next year. There was a debate as to whether it's an M4 or M5 chip in it. It's looking like it's an M5 chip. The various SDKs and firmwares, people have been string busting them, and sure enough, it's looking like an M5. So should be a significant performance upgrade. The rumor is that is pretty much literally the only change. It's just the bump in the processor. There will be a lighter weight, less expensive, smaller version in a couple of years, tentatively called the Vision Air. So people will be keeping an eye out for that. Sony, they have just bumped the prices on their PlayStation 5 by $50 at all the levels due to the tariffs. So if you were looking to get into the PSVR 2 and you don't have one, everything got a little more expensive. So thing to keep in mind. Also, for people who've been using the PSVR 2 on PC, they keep adding more and more features in the PC drivers. The open source mod drivers now support eye tracking in Steam VR, which is very slick. I think at this point, the only thing completely lacking are the haptics in the headset itself and the dynamic tension on the triggers. So they're getting pretty close to a full support. Android XR. This is Project Muhan, still on track for sometime this year, although the rumor is that it will come out in Korea first and everywhere else at some undetermined time later. So, Meta, there was a lot of stuff going on in the Meta camp this month. I'm going to kind of go into some detail on some of the prototypes, but I'm not going to really do a deep dive on them this time because I want to save time for our main speaker. But there's a lot of really exciting stuff that opens up a lot of interesting questions about the Quest 4 and other upcoming headsets. So anyway, just to remind people, the Quest 4 was originally slated to come out in 2026. It's been bumped to 2027. They've got a thin and light sunglasses form factor headset, either based off of Puffin or Loma, their internal prototypes, gesture-based, that they are going to come out with next year. So presumably that'll be announced at Connect a year from now. But this Connect, which is coming up in about a month, we know that they're going to be releasing their, internally they're called Hypernova. We're seeing things saying Celeste. We don't know if that's the official name or if it's just a code name. They are basically their Meta Ray-Bans, except they have a display, a heads-up display in one eye. So for example, if it's doing real-time translation, it can give you subtitles instead of you having to wait, listen to the translation, say something, have it translate back. So originally they were saying it was going to launch between 1,000 and 1,400. Apparently they got cold feet, and that number has now dropped to 800. I don't know whether they just had originally padded it out a lot or whether they just decided there was not going to be any uptake at that price point, and they may have learned their lesson from the Quest Pro. There's a little projector display bump at the right corner of the stem. That's where we saw the Celeste thing. It's engraved on there. It has an EMG, I guess that's electromyography band that reads the electrical impulses going to your muscles, which means it can read your hand gestures even if your hand is completely out of sight. So, but the actual final version of it's a little classier looking. It's got a little kind of a fabric mesh and everything. So, if you guys have been following the codec avatars, these are the hyper real avatars that they're trying to kind of get onto the far side of the uncanny valley. They've been working with it for a while, and they have this capture rig that has 1,000 cameras, and they upload it to the supercomputer that chews on it for hours and produces the codec avatar. Up until recently, it took two 4090s to run a codec avatar. They can now run 3 of them on a Quest 3. When they first started experimenting with codec avatars, they were very, very impressive, but people asked, when are these coming to market? When are you actually going to release these things? And they said, impossible to say. There are 10 miracles that need to happen between here and there. There are things that we don't know the answer to. And we could solve all 10 of them very quickly. It could take forever. We could never solve all of them. They're miracles. They'll happen or they won't. And then about a year ago, they asked him, said, how many miracles? He said, 5. We're down to 5. I'm pretty sure we're down to 4 now, because being able to render this on headset, and this is without any additional custom hardware. Rumor is that they've got some custom silicon in the pipeline for the Quest 4, or maybe for a Pro, that will directly accelerate codec avatars, so that it takes that processing load off of the processor. Should be very nice. So they're also now able to do dynamic hairstyles for codec avatars. So once you've been scanned in, if you want to change your hairstyle, they can swap it out. They got a little demo video here showing them changing the hairstyles. A couple of caveats though on the codec avatars on Quest 3. No dynamic lighting. They normally do have dynamic relighting, but they don't in this case. So firmware, we're looking and we're seeing a lot of hints that they're about to massively overhaul the home environment and also the Horizon Hub. But the home environment sounds like it will get a lot more social if you want it to be, and a lot more interactive. So basically, if you want to invite your friends over to play games or watch movies or whatever, that's the direction they're heading. So it's something they've been hinting for a long time. This is one of the environments that got scraped out of the firmware. Sharp-eyed people may note that this looks very similar to the stage they used when they were doing, was it Connect last year? I'm not sure. It was one of their big presentations. It was when they had leg gate with the fake leg tracking. So they're saying, they're giving advice to developers now that people should try to target building 20 to 40 minute experiences for VR. They said this is the Goldilocks zone. Said you want something that's long enough to be satisfying, to have been worth putting the headset on, but not so long that you get tired of wearing the headset. They said it's just a matter of the form factor right now. The headset form factor, around the 40-minute mark, you're starting to wish you could take it off. And so you don't want to push your stuff beyond that so that people are taking it off early or suffering, but you don't want to be shorter than 20 minutes because you want it to actually have been worth putting the headset on. So that's the guidance they're giving. This is kind of their other way of visualizing it. Obviously, they're trying to do some things to improve the form factor. That headset that they're ostensibly coming out with next year is supposed to be thin, light, and so forth. They're trending more and more towards things that you could wear for longer periods. There was Bosworth, who's their CTO. He does these Ask Me Anythings periodically, and he got asked about the augments, which were these sort of augmented reality widgets that you could place in your real world environment that when they announced, this is like 2 years ago, they announced them at Connect and were showing them all off, and then nothing happened. They never appeared, and they said, what's up with that? And he said, we built it all on a framework that when we tried to scale it up and push it out, it had performance implications that we didn't like. And so we ripped it down to the ground, and we've been rebuilding it from the ground up. So he didn't give a release date or anything, but it doesn't sound like they've abandoned it, but it sounds like they're rewriting it. From what I've heard, it was built on their Spark platform, which they have since completely abandoned. So SIGGRAPH. This is where they demo the good stuff. If you guys want to go hands-on with their prototypes, that is where you go, is SIGGRAPH. They have people presenting white papers from like their Reality Labs, the screen and haptics divisions and so forth all present there. So they have a number of things. This is the Boba 3 prototype. This is the first time they've demoed it publicly. Look, it's very thin. It's got a form factor very similar to a Quest 3, actually maybe even a touch thinner. So this is something that's got a very friendly form factor to it. It also has a 180-degree horizontal field of view and a 120-degree vertical field of view. So this is significantly better. Quest 3, for reference, has got about, depending on your eye relief and everything, it tops out close to about 110 degrees. horizontally and 90 degrees vertically. The Quest 3S is even significantly smaller than that. It's in the mid 90s. So, but here's, that's Dave Heaney from Upload VR wearing it. There's two variants, one that has pass-through, one that doesn't. It is slightly heavier than a Quest 3, but only slightly heavier than a Quest 3, which is pretty notable. Although it's not a totally fair comparison because this was a PC tethered headset, so it doesn't have all the compute hardware on it the way a Quest 3 does. Could you flip the light? Is there any chance you could turn off the light? Thanks. So this is showing kind of the Quest 3 field of view, and then it'll fold back out to the Boba 3 field of view. And even on the Boba 3, it's actually getting cut off on the edge of the screen. It extends beyond that. The video capture didn't catch it all. Here's another one. It's Quest 3. And here's Boba 3. So significantly wider field of view. So, what do we got here? Did we just lose this? Okay, so yeah, you can see the field of view. Quest 3, 108 by 96. That's sort of a best case if you dial it in as close as possible to your eyeballs. So the Boba 1, which is their original prototype, it went all the way out to 200, but it had some trade-offs, some significant trade-offs. They've been kind of trying to bring it in. By the time they hit the third headset, 180 degrees horizontal, 120 degrees vertical. But if you look, it's like a much smaller form factor here, much tighter form factor, and they're all the way down to 840 grams, which is getting in the ballpark of a Quest 3 with an Elite strap. It's getting close. Now, the cool thing is Dave Heaney said it was gorgeous. He said, much like the Quest 3, the lenses were super sharp, almost right out to the very edges. There was no distortion, nothing. It was just flawless. And he was talking with them, and there is no technical reason they couldn't produce this headset right now. They said there's no exotic materials, exotic tech. They've solved a lot of hard problems, but the hard part was in the design, not in the release. However, until we get foveated rendering really up and going well, the idea of driving that many pixels on a mobile headset is probably not going to happen. They had this hooked up to a PC on a high-end graphics card to drive it. So if they still believed in PC VR, they could release this today, but they've given up on PC VR. They've written it off. So I think we're going to have to wait for the rendering technology to catch up to the display technology before they actually release a headset like this, which is unfortunate. But because Dave Heaney was saying it was incredibly immersive. It was just really impressive how much it added, being able to see in the periphery and see down, see your hands, see different things. So he said really, really, really solid prototype, and especially notable because it was so close to being production ready. All right. So there's the Boba 1, which was a pretty chunky form factor. The Boba 2, the Boba 3, you can see it's getting like thinner and sleeker, and a Quest 3 for comparison. You look at it from the back, you can see very similar lenses. It uses some sort of reflective polarizing layer to like expand out the field of view on it. Some clever trickery layered in with their pancake lenses. The other big prototype they were showing off is Tiramisu, which this one was definitely not a consumer-ready sort of thing. This was just a peek in the lab. This is what they call looking into the future. You make compromises that you would never, ever make in a production headset just to test out one feature. And this is them testing extremely high brightness, extremely high contrast, extremely high resolution. So human eye, 20/20 vision is about 60 pixels per degree in the center of your field of view. This went to 90, and you might ask, why would you go all the way up to 90 if 20/20 vision is 60? And there's two reasons. One is there are some people who have better than 20/20 vision, and they can see the difference. And the other is because of the distortion layers where they're doing the projections and the reprojections to correct it all out, you actually get less fidelity than your physical resolution. So you need that extra headroom to get the max quality. And they said, because there was a previous prototype called Butterscotch that was playing also with the super high res, and it topped out around 60, and they said you can definitely see the difference going up to 90. So now the trade-off was this is so heavy they didn't even bother with the strap. You just had to hold it. It's pretty significantly chunky, and the field of view was 35 degrees. So it was a tiny little window. But he said you looked through that tiny little window and it looked real. I mean, the brightness and the contrast were just absolutely incredible. So let's see, yeah, here's a look at it from the side. So it's a big chunky headset, but it's a step up from Butterscotch. Butterscotch had these two bicycle handles on the side of it, and you just sort of had to like prop it against something, because I think it weighed 20 pounds or so. This was Butterscotch, which was the older one, as I said, 60 pixels per degree versus the Tiramisu's 90, but you could see kind of like Rift versus Quest 2 versus Butterscotch, like the resolving power increasing and increasing. This is what I was talking about, that you do a barrel distortion engine to cancel out the pin-cushion distortion from the lenses, and you lose quality when you do that, and that's why you need to push even higher on the resolution to sort of compensate. This is the lens stack. There's a Quest 3 lens stack right there, and here is, okay, Abby's here. So we may jump over and talk to Abby, and then come back to the rest of the presentation. I don't want to keep her waiting. But this is using a refractive setup. So this is kind of a comparison on the Quest 3 on like different metrics. Depth of focus is very similar, but 3 to 4 times the resolution, 14 times the peak brightness, 3 times the contrast, 3 times the minimized pupil swim. We were talking about Tiramisu. This was kind of the comparison to Quest 3. They are already working on a Tiramisu 2 that has a combination of refractive and diffractive optics that reduce the weight and the size and everything quite a bit. They got asked if they were going to be demoing Tiramisu 2 at next year's SIGGRAPH. They said they don't know. They don't make these decisions. But they just wanted to prove it out. It was one of those things. They do these different prototypes to see, is this feature compelling enough for us to make whatever trade-offs are going to be required to bring it to market? Because everything has a cost. Either that's a monetary cost or a weight cost or a power draw cost or whatever. So, they want to see if we have stuff at retina resolution where you literally cannot see the pixels, you can see every level of detail that you would in real life, how much does that add? And how much does extra brightness add? And with this, they were able to toggle on and off various things. Like they would have the high resolution, but not the brightness, or they'd have the brightness, but run it at a lower resolution, things like that. So they were able to kind of like suss out which things made the biggest impact. According to Dave Heaney, whom I have a fair bit of trust in, he said he was blown away by the Boba 3. That wide field of view was really, really compelling. But we know that that's something they're uncomfortable with bringing to the roadmap because of the computing requirements for it. But he said if Tiramisu 2, because Tiramisu, let's see if I think it's got the thing here, the 2 takes that field of view up from 33 degrees to 90 degrees, which would of course make a huge difference. So he said, if I see a full field of view at this level of detail, that may change my mind on what the most compelling feature is. So. And these are like super, super thin. I mean, they're planning on a 26 millimeter thick stack for the lenses, which is just barely thicker than the ones on the Quest 3. So another one that they've been playing with. This one they did not take out and demo at SIGGRAPH, but they did a paper on it and listed it. They are playing with synthetic aperture waveguide holography as a possible display tech. And we'll kind of get into a little bit of what that means here in a sec, but this is their diagram for all of you. You'll notice it's very thin, very, very thin. This is getting close to that sunglasses form factor that's their holy grail. So that's what they're working. Of course, as prototypes, you got cables coming off all sorts of wild directions, but also forget button down. But these are the basic pieces of it. So it uses waveguides, which are what they use on like the HoloLens. It gets used a lot more in AR than VR because you can with waveguides do optical pass through. You can actually have like the real world coming through. But it's driven by fiber connected lasers and dynamic micromirror arrays. So if anybody has those projectors, what are they called, that have the micromirror arrays, same tech for that, and lasers being fed in through fiber. Now, it uses a different type of grating on the surface than the ones used in AR headsets. This is called a volume Bragg's grating, VBG. These don't see a lot of use in most things because they introduce a lot of really interesting chromatic distortions and things. The light bends differently on different wavelengths coming out of it. There's a lot of weirdness to it. But Palmer Luckey's great insight that led to the original Rift prototypes was that we'd reached a point where you could have the computing power to map out what the distortion of a screen going through a lens was, reverse it, apply that to the video as you were feeding it out, and it would actually wrap around you correctly. So it was able to do software distortion to match the lens. They're doing the same thing. Basically, they trained up a neural network. They fired a bunch of test patterns through it, and they trained up a neural network to process the video that's being fed to it so that it doesn't have those distortions to it. The other thing is this is a true holographic display. With traditional VR headsets, you have what is called vergence, which means that as you bring something close, your eyes cross, and as you push them further away, your eyes go further. But it doesn't have accommodation where in order to keep something in focus, you have to flex your lens or unflex your lens. And you have that thing where if you're looking at something up close, everything behind it's blurry. Or if you're looking far, something up close is blurry. So you have something called vergence accommodation conflict on modern headsets that it takes away from the realism, and for some people it makes them uncomfortable. This doesn't have that problem. It's a true holographic display. In this display, if you focus further, you will focus on that and everything else will blur naturally. Just because it's actually steering the light as it comes into your eye, so it's coming in from the proper angles. 2.5 millimeters thick, so just ridiculously thin optical stack. This prototype is 38 degrees field of view, which is minuscule, but that's up from 23 degrees 2 years ago, so making good progress. Now, one of the things I've always said that's a challenge with waveguides is, you notice that things like the HoloLens and so on, they don't have a very big field of view. They fight mightily to get a few extra degrees out, and then they brag about it. And it has to do with the fact that with traditional waveguides, everything is coming off that waveguide at the same angle. They're coming off straight. And so as you get that waveguide further and further out, that light is coming in more and more at the wrong angle into your eye. But they can do a certain amount of steering with the micro mirrors, and they can also compensate in software so that they can back this source down. Now, is that good enough that you can actually get like a full field of view? I don't know. But going from 23 to 38 is impressive. If they can get that up above 90, close to 100, then suddenly we're talking. That's you really could have a sunglasses form factor holographic display. Other thing is what's called the eye box, which is how exactly aligned does your eye have to be to the dead center of the lens in order to get full clarity. The original one had a 2.3 millimeter eye box, so your eyes had to be lined up exactly right. And they have expanded that up to 9 millimeters by 8 millimeters, which is still pretty tight, but is significantly more forgiving. So, if without their neural training and software compensation, this is kind of how stuff looked coming off of that type of diffraction grading on the thing, which is why nobody uses that type of diffraction grading on waveguides, and they are able to compensate for that. So and that was kind of it for that one. Any questions?